Good evening, everyone. Welcome and welcome back. Today we have a full plate. We are going to be doing a lot of different things. Some that you've seen, some that you haven't. And we are going to be working out of these two books here, Moremi's Industrial Fashionista Personas. And her other one, these were just released, Moremi's Essenziali, Backgrounds for Art Journaling and Collage. This is the Whispers of Industrial Zone. So you can find all kinds of images in these two books. So I am mixing about 3 or 4 different pages together. And you're gonna get to see how I mix those elements with their different pieces. So sit back, relax, and we're gonna get started. Now, some of you have seen my 2-tone, 3-tone stencil technique, and I'm going to demonstrate it again for you tonight. So the first thing I want to do, because there is an area, and you'll see it when I begin, that I want to stencil. I need to pick a stencil that is going to go good with the background I've chosen. So I'm leaning towards this one here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it off its hook. These stencils I got in a pack on Amazon. They didn't cost very much. I believe it was $7 or $8 for this pack. And what's nice is I've accidentally left the Distress inks on the stencil. I set the stencil aside to dry, or not to dry, but to get it out of my way. And I had put it on a piece of paper, but I forgot about it. So when I got to it 3 days later, it still washed off with water. Just perfect, like it was brand new. So I'm going to be using this stencil on this edge. But I want to hold it down good. And I'm going to see if these helping hands actually work to do just that. I want to get this off just a little bit because I do not want a white gap. So I'm lining it up so that there is no gap. Okay. The first one I'm going to go with is going to be the lightest color that I'm using, which is Distressed Oxide Vintage Photo. But right now, as I'm thinking about it, I'm already wanting to change my mind. So, and you're going to see why in just a moment. And it's how I use that vintage photo that's going to make the difference. So I'm going to start off with this one. It's a gray called Lost Shadow. And the reason why I chose it is because this little beauty right here And this is the area I want to do the stenciling in. This little beauty right here has got some pinks and grays in her with a little bit of the vintage photo color. So that's why I chose those colors. It also goes with the pink and gray and vintage photo color here as well as in her dress. So I'm going to over stencil, which means I'm going beyond where I actually need it, just to make sure I cover enough area. So I'm gonna start with this gray here. And again, this one is called Lost Shadow. Okay, so that's that one color. Now I'm going to change, and I need a different dauber. And I don't have a pink. It looks like I used this one for purple. The only other one I have is for green. So I need to get some more sponges, y'all. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm gonna use the vintage photo dauber. You guys are gonna get to see the train wreck if there is one. And I'm going to clean my dauber on a piece of paper. Okay, now I'm going to use the pink, but I'm not going to go over all the area in the pink. And this pink is called Victorian Velvet. And it's a darker pink. It ends up looking like that. And I'm only gonna go on the edge. Gonna go on the one edge, and I've got my applicator tilted. so that I stay on that one edge. I'm going to clean my dauber of the pink, and then I can go back into my vintage photo. Okay. So now I'm only going to go into a few areas with the vintage photo, not everywhere. So that's 3 colors, and we're gonna see how that ended up. And that's exactly what I was looking for. So let me show you that up close. So that's 3 colors. And you see how sometimes they overlap and sometimes they're only in certain areas. That's how you do a double or a triple stencil technique. Leaving the stencil in position, but only using the colors in strategic areas. Okay, so sit back and let's begin the build. So we're gonna be working with this young lady right here, but we've got half of a page that we're going to slip underneath her. So this was a little bit plain, and this was almost white with just a little bit of brown. So I wanted to slip this underneath. Like that. And you see how the stencil goes back here to this white area? That's exactly what I was wanting. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead first and get this down the strategic area, avoiding this right here that I need to lift up and work with. So I'm gonna do that first so that it's stable. I'm avoiding this area right there. Now I have fussy cut all my images and pre-cut the areas I want to lift up. And then when I get done, I can go back and glue down those areas that I need to tack down. And I'm going to show you a distressed ink technique with these two here. So I'm gonna leave these here to remind myself at the end, and you're gonna see how I strategically use those by themselves without a dauber. And I'm sure some of you have already seen people do it. You just go straight down with the ink pad. I wanted these flowers to come up, so I cut this piece in such a way that I cut away all of this but left the flowers because I knew they would come up in this area near her shoulder. So I've done all of that pre-filming on purpose to save you guys some time and watching me figure it out. And I also went around all of my images with either the black soot or the vintage photo. The vintage photo, I went around the faces and the hands on these little images to get rid of any of the white, because cutting around these little tiny mouths and necks and noses are very difficult. So I did use the vintage photo on the edges of those. And it also brings the skin to a little bit of a glow. So I like how that ends up. I also wanted these guys poking through. I want to get him back on his cut line. Now I want to get her gear on her backpack to come in between the spirals of the notebook. But I do want part of her to be under this image and part of her to be over, because then that melds the images together. So don't be afraid to put images over, images under, to get things to be more cohesive and look like they belong. So under and over. And this little piece will go on the paper under the spiral or near the spiral. So when I turn the pages, it doesn't get affected. Let me get her gear down. And then I have this little cutie right here. Now to cut in between these pieces, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you. To fussy cut in between this machinery, I severed the machinery from itself, and when I glue it down, it will go right back together. I did the same thing with his little footsises so that I could get in between those bird legs and get that white area out of there. It just looks better. I want her standing on this pipe, and I will add a shadow in just a moment to make it look like she's really standing on the pipe and not just floating on it. that his tail is coming off the page. Okay, so she's now standing on that pipe between the different levels. The pipe is gray, so the shadow is going to be gray. Shadow tends to be a darker color of the object that the other object is sitting on or standing on. So there's the shadow. So you always want to put a shadow. In fact, I'm going to do a shadow on her too, on her feet. But I'm going to get this piece. You know what? This piece I'm going to what am I going to do? I'm going to leave it on there and I'm going to glue it down. That's what I'm going to do, because taking it off would ruin the one side. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it on and to meld these two images. So you never know there was a seam there. So now I'm going to add the shadow on her feet, but there is a tiny white gap between the pipe and the paper that I'm going to fill in. So you no longer see it. So these pens can cover up areas where you've got some white that doesn't make sense. You can use them to add shadow. And this is just a Sharpie, a dark gray Sharpie with a fine tip. I love them because you can really draw with them and control them. And there is a piece of something that is causing me angst. Okay, so there's a shadow under her feet. So it will ground your images when you do shadows under the feet. Okay, now what I want to do next, I do have one more piece, and it's this piece right here. I'm going to use to fill in that area that is so stark white. There's not any color there, so I want to use that to add some dimensional quality there. And the technique I told you I was going to do with the smaller distress inks, you can do them with the larger ones if you have more surface area. But these smaller ones here, I'm going to start off with the pink, which is again, the Victorian Velvet. And I'm going to go straight down on the paper. And there you have it. Now I don't want to do pink right straight ahead, so I'm going to take the gray. And this is the Lost Shadow. And on this one, I'm going to do a square. And then I'm going to take the pink again, and I'm going to do a diamond, so I'm turning it. I'm going to overlap the gray. I'm going to take the gray as a diamond shape. I'm going to turn it. On the pink, I'm going to go right here as a square. Don't be afraid to go over your images. That's part of the charm of the stamping. And again, they will not be perfect, and that is part of the charm as well. So it helps you to fill in gaps and add some more interest. Another thing that I can do that I love to do is I'm going to take this gel pen, and it's, let's see if I can find the label. It's a metallic that is sold in sets. You have white, silver, and copper, and it's a jelly roll pen by Sakura. It's a Japanese. So you see these copper circles that Marta has already put down in her artistry. We're gonna mimic some of that. In our artistry. You can even put it inside the pink. You can put it on the bulb. You can put it on the dress. You can put more than one. I always go smaller, so I don't usually keep the circles the same. I usually do a large, a medium, and a small. It's usually the pattern I like to do. You can do one on the moon. This is your world. You do what makes you happy. You can do one in this area right here to fill in that white. And be careful you don't get your hand in your previous. So this is a copper accent. You can even add one on her dress. You can add one on her hat. You can add some in here with your stenciling. To fill in areas. Go round and round and round. Leave a circle uncolored and you have an instant highlight. We can do one down here. And when I show this to you up close, you'll get to see the shininess of the copper. And they don't have to be perfect. And I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna put one on his wing. Yeah, there it is. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know what I'm going to call this set of beauties, but there it is. You can see the stamping and the copper pen, the jelly roll. I wish we were live so you guys could tell me what you think the title should be. So there it is. Thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun with you this evening, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. I hope everyone is well, and I will see you on the next one.